Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news. We have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case against Donald Trump. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he's showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran with people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it. In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will hear one day. The recording was made 2 summers ago, July 2021, at the former president's club in Bedminster, New Jersey.
Okay, so look, I need you to pay attention right now because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely insane. Like, this is the kind of stuff that sounds made up, but it's real, it's happening, and honestly, it might be one of the biggest bombshells we've seen in a while. So there's leaked footage. Yeah, you heard that right. Leaked audio and video from inside Trump's inner circle. And I'm not talking about some random phone call or a hot mic moment. No, this is way bigger. This is secretly recorded meetings between Trump and his legal team, including one of his ex-lawyers. And what's on these recordings? Oh, just Trump losing his mind over the Supreme Court and literally, and I mean literally, plotting revenge against judges and prosecutors. Can you believe this? Now, before you think I'm exaggerating, let me be clear. These recordings reportedly show Trump in private sessions demanding that his advisors come up with plans to go after people who ruled against him, judges, prosecutors, political opponents, the whole 9 yards. And here's the kicker. One of his own lawyers apparently flipped, turned on him, and is now cooperating with prosecutors. Like, this is straight out of a mob movie, except it's real life and it's happening right now. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
All right, we continue to monitor today's major case at the Supreme Court. Justices are hearing arguments on the president's authority to impose tariffs on any international country. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman is live outside of the Supreme Court and joins me now to talk about it. Katrina, all right, here's where we're looking. Catch us up. What have we learned so far?
Hi, Vlad. Well, first of all, I'm out in front of the Supreme Court, and there is a long line of people here who are waiting to get into these arguments. This is such a big case that it's really drawing a crowd. But so far, there has been a lot of pushback. John Sauer is arguing on behalf of the Trump administration right now, and he's arguing to a court of originalists, of textualists, of people who rely on statutory interpretation. And Vlad, they keep asking him about the way he's trying to use the language here to regulate importation. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was pushing back a lot on him. She said, can you point to any place in the statutory code, in the history, where it was used to confer tariff authority? And she is someone who really is strong on statutory interpretation, Vlad. Another one of the justices just said that to have the president's power trump congressional power when it comes to taxation seems to neutralize those powers. So this is really a really key case about the balance of power.
And get this, the leak doesn't just stop at Trump's team. There's also recordings of Supreme Court justices privately discussing Trump's immunity case. These are supposed to be confidential discussions, and somehow they got out. So now we've got this massive breach that's shaken up the entire legal and political system. It's wild. Legal experts are freaking out. They're saying this threatens the integrity of the entire government. The checks and balances we're supposed to have, those might be in serious trouble. And this is all happening at like the worst possible time. Trump's already dealing with multiple criminal cases, the classified documents thing, the hush money stuff, and now this. It's like everything's collapsing at once. So why does this matter? Well, think about it. Trump's whole defense strategy has been built on this image of control, of having the best lawyers, of being untouchable. But now we're seeing cracks, big cracks. His own people are turning on him. Secret meetings are getting leaked. In the recordings, oh man, the recordings apparently show him absolutely furious, raging about court decisions and demanding retaliation. That's not the look of someone in control. That's desperation. And here's what really gets me. This isn't just about Trump anymore. This is about what happens when someone in power, someone who used to be president, openly talks about going after the judicial system, going after judges who rule against him. That's not how democracy works. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. Come on. The timing couldn't be worse for Trump either. These leaks are coming out right when prosecutors are building their cases against him, right when the public is paying attention to his legal troubles. And now there's actual evidence, recorded evidence of him talking about retaliation. That's not a good look. That's actually a terrible look. It makes him seem vindictive, petty, and honestly kind of dangerous. But wait, there's more, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is all connected to bigger questions about presidential immunity, about whether Trump can even be prosecuted for stuff he did while in office, about the separation of powers and respect for the rule of law. In these recordings, they're basically handing prosecutors ammunition, like Trump's own words caught on tape, potentially showing intent to obstruct justice or intimidate the judicial system. Are you kidding me? And you know what makes this even crazier? The fact that this leak happened at all. Someone somewhere in Trump's inner circle or close to the Supreme Court decided that this information needed to get out. That tells you something. That tells you people are worried. People are seeing things that concern them enough to risk everything and leak this stuff. That's not normal. That's desperation on multiple levels. So yeah, this is huge. This is the kind of story that could change everything. And we need to dig into it, break it down, and figure out what this really means. Because trust me, this goes way deeper than just some leaked recordings. This is about power, about accountability, and about what happens when the walls start closing in on someone who thought they were untouchable. Stick with me here because we're about to unpack this whole mess. And honestly, you're not going to believe some of the details. All right, so let's get into the details because this story has layers, like serious layers. And the more you dig, the crazier it gets. First, let's talk about these leaked recordings. Where did they come from? How did they get out? Well, according to reports, this footage includes audio from what was supposed to be confidential legal strategy sessions. These are meetings where Trump and his lawyers discussed their game plan, their defenses, their next moves, and somehow someone recorded it all and leaked it. Now, the big question everyone's asking is who leaked it? And here's where it gets interesting. One of Trump's ex-lawyers, someone who was on the inside, apparently decided to cooperate with prosecutors. Yeah, they flipped. They're working with the other side now. And legal experts think this person might be the source of at least some of these leaks, which if true, is absolutely devastating for Trump's defense. Because think about it. This isn't some random outsider making stuff up. This is someone who was in the room, who heard everything, who has firsthand knowledge of what Trump was saying and planning. But let's back up and talk about what's actually on these recordings. From what's been reported, the footage shows Trump absolutely furious about Supreme Court decisions that went against him. And we're not talking about just being disappointed or frustrated. No, sources say he was raging, demanding his team figure out ways to hit back at the judges who ruled against him, at prosecutors who are investigating him, at anyone who's been a thorn in his side. Now think about what that means for a second. A former president, someone who took an oath to uphold the Constitution and respect the rule of law, is caught on tape talking about retaliating against the judicial system, against judges. That's not normal political disagreement. That's something else entirely. That's someone who sees the courts as enemies instead of as an independent branch of government doing their job. And here's the thing. Trump's always had this adversarial relationship with anyone who challenges him. We've seen it before. He attacks judges on social media, calls them biased, questions their integrity. But this is different. This is him in private, behind closed doors, actually strategizing about how to go after them. That's not just rhetoric anymore. That's planning. That's intent. And that's what makes it so dangerous. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Because the leak doesn't just involve Trump's team. There's also this other element. Recordings of Supreme Court justices having private discussions about Trump's immunity case. Now, these are supposed to be completely confidential deliberations. The Supreme Court takes that stuff seriously. So the fact that these recordings exist and got leaked, that's a massive breach, like unprecedented level of breach. And you have to wonder, how did someone get access to record Supreme Court justices? Who had that kind of access? And why would they leak it? Some people are saying it could be a whistleblower, someone who thought the public needed to know what was being discussed. Others think it might be part of a broader effort to expose Trump's behavior and hold him accountable. Either way, it's causing chaos. Legal experts are losing their minds over this. They're saying this kind of leak threatens the entire system of checks and balances. Because if people can't have confidential legal discussions, if Supreme Court deliberations can be recorded and leaked, then how can the system function? How can lawyers give their clients honest advice? How can judges deliberate freely without worrying about political fallout? It's a mess. But here's what I think a lot of people are missing. This isn't just about the leak itself. It's about what the leak reveals. Yeah, the breach is serious. Yeah, it's a problem that these recordings got out. But the content, the actual content of what Trump was saying, that's the real story. Because it shows a pattern of someone who refuses to accept legal accountability, who sees the judicial system as something to be manipulated or defeated rather than respected. And this ties into all of Trump's other legal problems right now. The classified documents case, where he's accused of taking sensitive government files and refusing to return them. The hush money case, where he allegedly paid off people to keep quiet about affairs and then covered it up. The January 6th stuff, where prosecutors are looking at his role in the Capitol attack. All of these cases, all of them, involve questions about Trump's respect for the law and for democratic institutions. And now we have recordings that apparently show him plotting retaliation against the very people who are supposed to hold him accountable. Can you see how this all connects? It's not random. It's a pattern of behavior where Trump sees himself as above the rules, above accountability, and willing to use whatever power he has to go after his enemies. Let's talk about the lawyer who flipped, because that's huge too. In Trump's world, loyalty is everything. He demands it from everyone around him. And when people break that loyalty, when they cooperate with prosecutors or testify against him, he loses it. He's attacked former allies before, called them rats and traitors, and worse. So the fact that one of his own lawyers decided to cooperate, that tells you something. That tells you either they saw something that made them uncomfortable enough to flip, or they realized the legal jeopardy they were in and decided to save themselves. Either way, it's bad news for Trump, because lawyers know everything. They know the strategy, the weaknesses in the case, the things Trump said in private that he'd never want prosecutors to hear. And now prosecutors have access to all of that. It's like imagine playing poker and your opponent suddenly gets to see all your cards. That's basically what's happening here. And the timing, oh man, the timing is brutal. Trump's already facing multiple criminal trials. His legal bills are piling up. Some of his co-defendants in other cases have already flipped and are cooperating with prosecutors. His poll numbers are all over the place. And now this. These leaks that make him look vindictive and out of control, that show him talking about going after judges and prosecutors, that reveal cracks in his legal team and his inner circle. Public opinion matters here too, because yeah, Trump has his base, people who will support him no matter what, but there are also independent voters, moderate Republicans, people who are kind of on the fence about him. And when they see stories like this, when they hear recordings of him plotting revenge against judges, that might change some minds. It might make people think twice about whether this is someone who respects democratic norms and institutions. And let's be real, this leak is going to fuel more investigations. Prosecutors are going to want to hear those full recordings. They're going to want to question the people who were in those meetings. They're going to use this as evidence that Trump was actively trying to obstruct justice or intimidate witnesses or tamper with the legal system. That's serious criminal stuff we're talking about. Not just political drama, actual potential crimes. The legal implications here are massive. Like if prosecutors can prove that Trump was actively plotting to retaliate against judges, that could be witness intimidation, that could be obstruction of justice, that could be conspiracy to interfere with judicial proceedings. These aren't minor charges. These are the kinds of things that carry serious prison time, and with recordings as evidence, that's pretty damning. So where does this leave us? Well, Trump's legal problems just got a whole lot worse. His defense strategy just got exposed. His inner circle is fracturing. And there's now recorded evidence of him doing exactly what prosecutors suspected, talking about retaliation and revenge instead of just accepting the legal process. This is wild, and honestly, I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet, because once one lawyer flips, others might follow. Once recordings start leaking, more might come out. This could be just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so let's break this down into the key points you need to understand, because there's a lot happening here, and it can get confusing. But when you step back and look at the big picture, it's actually pretty clear what's going on. Point number one, Trump is on tape plotting retaliation against judges and prosecutors. Let that sink in. A former president caught on recording talking about how to go after the people who are supposed to hold him accountable. This isn't speculation. This isn't anonymous sources making things up. These are actual recordings that exist. And what they show is someone who's furious about losing in court and wants revenge. That's not how leaders in a democracy are supposed to act. That's authoritarian behavior. That's what you see in countries where the rule of law doesn't matter. And here's why this is so dangerous. Because when someone in power or someone seeking power openly talks about targeting the judicial system, that sends a message. It tells other judges, other prosecutors, that they better think twice before ruling against this person, or they might face consequences. That's intimidation. That's an attack on judicial independence. And if it works, if judges start making decisions based on fear instead of the law, then the whole system breaks down. Come on, that's not the America we're supposed to have. Point number two, one of Trump's own lawyers flipped and is cooperating with prosecutors. This is massive. Because lawyers have attorney-client privilege, they know everything their client says and does. And when one decides to break that privilege and cooperate, that means they either witness potential crimes or they're trying to save themselves from legal trouble. Either way, it's devastating for Trump's defense. Think about what prosecutors now have access to: legal strategy memos, private conversations, knowledge of where the weaknesses are in Trump's case, information about what Trump said when he thought no one outside his inner circle would ever hear it. That's gold for prosecutors. That's the kind of inside information that can make or break a criminal case. And it's not just one conversation or one meeting. This lawyer potentially has months or even years of knowledge about Trump's legal strategy and behavior, and it raises questions too. Like, what did this lawyer see or hear that made them decide to flip? Was it these recordings about retaliation? Was it something else? Was it just self-preservation? We don't know all the details yet, but the fact that it happened at all tells you something about how serious this situation is. Lawyers don't typically turn on their clients unless things are really, really bad. Point number 3, these leaks are coming at the worst possible time for Trump. He's already facing multiple criminal prosecutions. The classified documents case where he could face serious prison time. The election interference cases, the hush money trial, and now prosecutors have even more ammunition, recordings that could show intent to obstruct justice, to intimidate witnesses, to retaliate against judges. That's really bad. And politically, this is a nightmare too, because Trump's whole brand is built on being strong, being in control, being the guy who wins and never backs down. But these leaks show something different. They show someone who's scared, who's losing, who's lashing out in desperation. They show cracks in his legal team and his inner circle, people flipping, people cooperating with prosecutors. That's not strength, that's weakness, and voters can see that. And you can already see how prosecutors are going to use this. They're going to point to these recordings and say, see how he talks about judges, see how he wants to retaliate against anyone who holds him accountable. This is someone who thinks he's above the law. This is someone who's willing to attack democratic institutions to protect himself. That's going to be their narrative. And honestly, these recordings give them pretty good evidence for it. Point number 4, this exposes a much bigger problem about respect for democratic norms. Because here's the thing, Trump isn't just some random citizen anymore. He was president. He has influence. He has followers. And when someone like that openly attacks judges, openly talks about retaliation and revenge, that sets a precedent. That tells other politicians it's okay to do the same thing. That normalizes behavior that should never be normalized in a democracy. And we're already seeing the effects of this. Other politicians attacking judges who rule against them, efforts to intimidate prosecutors, attempts to politicize the justice system. This isn't just about Trump anymore. This is about whether we're going to have an independent judiciary or whether we're going to slide into a system where legal decisions are based on political power instead of the law. That's the real danger here. Think about what happens if this behavior becomes normal. If every politician who loses in court starts talking about going after judges, if every defendant with enough power and influence can intimidate the judicial system into backing down, that's not justice. That's not rule of law. That's ruled by whoever has the most power and the least scruples. And once we go down that road, it's really hard to come back. So what happens next? Well, prosecutors are going to dig deeper. They're going to want full access to these recordings. They're going to want to interview everyone who was in those meetings. They're going to build their case using this evidence. And Trump's legal team, they're going to have to go into damage control mode. They're going to have to explain these recordings, downplay them, maybe even challenge their authenticity or how they were obtained. But here's the problem for Trump. Even if his lawyers try to suppress these recordings, even if they argue they were obtained illegally, the cat's out of the bag now. People know they exist. The public has heard about them, and that's going to shape public opinion, whether the recordings ever get used in court or not. The damage is already done in terms of perception, and there's going to be more fallout from this. More people in Trump's orbit might decide to cooperate with prosecutors, especially if they think the ship is sinking and they want to save themselves. More leaks might come out. More details about what Trump said and did in private. This could be just the beginning, and that's what's really scary for Trump's legal team right now. The uncertainty of not knowing what else might come out or who else might flip. For Trump supporters, they're probably going to see this as another witch hunt, another example of the system going after him unfairly. And yeah, there are legitimate questions about how these recordings were obtained and whether that was legal. But, and this is important, even if you think the leak was wrong, that doesn't change what Trump actually said. It doesn't change the fact that he apparently was talking about retaliation and revenge. You can't just ignore that because you don't like how the information came out. For his critics, this is more evidence of what they've been saying all along, that Trump doesn't respect democratic institutions, that he sees himself as above the law, that he's willing to use any means necessary to avoid accountability. And these recordings, they're basically handing his critics everything they need to make that case. It's like you couldn't ask for better evidence if you were trying to prove that Trump has no respect for the judicial system. And here's another angle that people aren't talking about enough, the impact on Trump's future legal strategy. Because now anything he says or does is going to be seen through this lens. Any statement about judges or prosecutors, any criticism of the courts, it's all going to be viewed as potential witness intimidation or obstruction because of what's on these recordings. He's basically boxed himself in. He can't defend himself publicly without it looking like more of the same behavior that got him in trouble in the first place. So bottom line, this leak is a huge deal. It exposes Trump's mindset, reveals cracks in his legal defense, gives prosecutors more ammunition, and raises serious questions about his respect for the rule of law. And we're probably going to be talking about this for weeks, maybe months, as more details come out and as prosecutors decide how to use this information. This is one of those moments where you can see the walls closing in, where the legal pressure is building, where the cracks are starting to show. And honestly, I don't see how Trump gets out of this one without serious damage. The evidence is too strong. The testimony from cooperating witnesses is too valuable. The recordings are too damning. And you know what? Part of me wonders if Trump even realizes how much trouble he's in, because his whole life he's always been able to talk his way out of things, settle lawsuits, make problems go away with money or intimidation. But this is different. This is criminal prosecution with real prison time on the line. This is cooperating witnesses who know where all the bodies are buried. This is recorded evidence that can't be explained away or spun as fake news. So what's next? Well, stay tuned, because if this leak is any indication, there's probably more coming, more revelations, more bombshells, more chaos, and we'll be here to break it all down for you. More witnesses might come forward, more recordings might surface, more details about the extent of Trump's behavior might come to light. This story is far from over. This is the kind of story that could change everything, and we're watching it unfold in real time. The next few months are going to be absolutely critical. Court proceedings, more testimony, potential trials. And through it all, the question of whether Trump will finally face real accountability for his actions. Wild times indeed. Are you kidding me with how crazy this all is?